hello and welcome to the new video. And this time we brought to the test the Peugeot 308 Estate plug-in hybrid. Now I've only tested so far the petrol variant of this car with 130 horsepower, so I wanted to test out the plug-in hybrid as well. This is the most powerful variant of the car with 225 horsepower in total, and of course electric range possible. So yeah, but let's have a little walk around the car first. So I have to say the Peugeot 308 is probably the best looking car in its class. The Peugeot really upped their design in the recent times, and the thing I like, I have to say, in terms of design, is the charisma that the car has, because it actually looks like the cars from the past that they had this sort of animal face, and it has this sort of a tiger face with these teeth. I really do like it. It's a lovely design, and it also looks very sort of compact and sporty with wide shoulders. So yeah, it's a great design from the front. And this Estate, I think they've also done a good little work with the Estate variant of the car. But I also want to point you to another design element that I like, that they put these two badges, sort of like a Ferrari, but you have a Peugeot badge on each side of the front arch. In terms of wheels, we have these aerodynamic 18-inch wheels with 225/40 tire on it, and these are some sporty Firestone tires on them. Now the silhouette, the side silhouette of the car looks, I think, quite sporty. There is a connection in between the front lights and towards the rear lights. You can see here these two sharp lines. You also have some side aerodynamic element on the sills. So yeah, I think it looks quite sporty and maybe a little bit like a coupe. Then again, the Peugeot design element is 3D rear lights. They actually look pretty good in night, and a sort of a very small rear spoiler here, and a spoiler also on the top of the car on the roofline to give it better aerodynamic efficiency. And the car also improved the aerodynamic efficiency because they decreased the roofline a few millimeters. So yeah, let's have a look into the boot, which, as you might expect, is not the biggest in its class, and also because it's a plug-in hybrid. Now there is still decent amount of practicality. You have these side nettings here, you have these two handles for folding the seats down, a 12-volt socket there, and let's have a look under the floor as well. So we have a subwoofer here, and here is where the battery is. So, and if we look at it from the side, the battery is very slightly behind the rear axle, probably because of balancing. Also, I think the engine is slightly in front of the front axle, so it sort of balances itself out. Now, on the left side of the car, you charge the car through the AC. I think it's 7.4 kilowatt charging. Yeah, so let's have a look into the rear. Welcome, I open the door. So the wheelbase is not the biggest in its class, and as you can see, there isn't much space in terms of legroom here. Yeah, there isn't enough space, and even the head is just about right, I have to say. If I would be a little bit taller, it would be a little problematic. But now in terms of comfort, of course, you have normal things like air conditioning in the back. You have two USB-C connectors for charging, and an armrest with cup holders. So yeah, it's okay. And there is also this sort of plastic place that you can open. I don't know what should be coming out of there, but there is nothing really. I don't know what it is for, to be quite honest. And two LED headlights in the roof lining. So yeah, not the most spacious, but decent for people who can fit inside. Let's now have a look at the business end, and that is the engine. So the one thing I like is that you don't have to open up the bonnet with the lever, putting it to the side and then open it up. You just simply find where it is, which, okay, here it is, and you simply put it up and you open the bonnet. The bonnet is also itself, it's quite light, which I kind of like. Yeah, so here is the engine. It's a 1.6 turbo, producing 180 horsepower. So it's a very well-known engine in the Stellantis concern, used quite often, of course. Yeah, it's giving the car quite a good amount of performance. Of course, in total, it's giving you 225 horsepower. So yeah, now as we can see, if I look at it from here, the engine is very slightly in front of the front axle. So yeah, we were right. The balancing, there has to be some sort of balancing out of the engine for the handling. So that's why they put the battery also slightly behind the rear axle. Yeah, so it's quite okay. Now what this car, what every car is about, is driving. So let's take it further down the road and let's drive the car. All right, so welcome to the interior. So I'm on the way, so I let the car running and just decided to start the video here. So as you step inside the interior of the 308, so this is the sort of the starting interior of the new generation of the Peugeot. So this is where all of the new Peugeot interior started with. It introduced this dual display with these shortcut buttons. They're great, and you can customize them as is your need of what you want to know or what you want to have access when driving. So I think it's really great, these shortcut buttons. They are very responsive. Yeah, I really do quite like them. Also, a big improvement over the last generation is the quality of the rear view camera, which is now very clear, very high quality. You have 360-degree camera as well, so really amazing. And the Peugeot interior is really striking in the design. It's really very, it's just simply beautiful to look at. And even though maybe the position of the steering wheel beneath the instrument cluster is for someone a little bit strange, it is very interesting still, and I actually do quite like it. And of course I love this usual Peugeot small steering wheel. I really do love it. It's great to hold. It's just very comfortable to use. The seats, they're a combination of leather, of suede, and some sort of textile, and they are actually quite good and quite sporty. They could hold the body a little bit better in the corners, but yeah, in terms of build quality, it is really not bad. I think it can compete with cars like Audi, and I also have this focal audio system, of which is very high quality, very good and very clear to listen even in higher speeds. I have panorama. This car is equipped also with panorama, which is great on a day like this where there is a lot of sun, so that's amazing. And you also have massage seats. So yeah, just a very nice interior to be in when driving. And another thing, so let's start. Another thing on the driving is that the car is almost extremely quiet when you're driving. So the acoustic, so the sound isolation of the car is very good. So I measured around 55 decibels. How was it? Under 60 decibels at 130 kilometers, and around 50 decibels at 100. So that's really quiet. It's quite significant. It's quite significantly improving the enjoyment on the long journeys, and you also are then less tired when you come into your destination. So yeah, that's a really cool feature. So, and this car, it's a plug-in hybrid. It's the most powerful variant of the Peugeot 308 at the moment. It has 225 horsepower in total, which is of course generated by the electric engine, and a 1.6 turbo producing 180 horsepower, I think. So it's a very usual setup of the Peugeot, and it works quite well. I mean, just now I'm driving the car in sports mode, and I do have to say the response in sports mode is much better than in normal, first thing. And yeah, you certainly feel the power even with the discharged battery as I have now. I have completely flat battery at the moment. So yeah, that's a great thing. And of course, an advantage of a plug-in hybrid is that you can use the battery when driving in the city, and then when you go outside you simply use the petrol engine. So yeah, but maybe the thing I don't like about plug-in hybrids is the sort of behavior, or when you have battery charged or you have discharged battery. So yeah, the battery management when you have full battery and you start driving is such that the car just simply uses the battery first and uses it as much as it can, and then it simply uses the petrol engine as a normal. So you end up driving with 200 kilos plus in the luggage compartment or above the rear axle, and yeah, it simply makes the fuel consumption higher. And then another thing is, when the car is discharged, I would expect it, maybe as it's called hybrid, to really maybe behave like a good hybrid car, maybe like a Toyota or Honda, but it is really not that. I mean, this Peugeot is only using electricity, even on setting off from the lights, very unusually. So yeah, very rarely it uses electric engine, so it mostly uses petrol power when the battery is flat, and this is not very good for the fuel consumption as well. If it would be driving as a normal hybrid, it would make a lot more sense, because you would have just this very efficient hybrid powertrain and you could drive in the city for maybe 3-4 liters. But this way you drive for 7 or 8 in the city during the cold mornings when you have flat battery. So yeah, I would say this is a little bit of disadvantage. But the nice thing I have to say, and it's with all Peugeots, that with the petrol or diesel engine, or even this plug-in hybrid, so with all the normal engines, you still have this 8-speed IC automatic transmission, which is just great. It keeps the RPM very low, and then also helps the sound that is very low. And yeah, it's just a very good gearbox also in terms of response, in terms of smoothness. It's a really great gearbox, and it's a really big advantage of Peugeot cars that they have this sort of gearbox. Now, as you're driving around the world, I have to say, the damping, it's a quite, I would say, maybe unusual car. I'm not sure what sort of suspension setup it uses. I would suppose it uses multi-link and multi-link at the back and McPherson in the front. But I'm really not sure, because the car, when you're driving through the angulations, is quite stiff. But then when you're cornering, or when you're doing some sort of critical maneuver, it happens to feel quite soft and it rolls quite a bit. So yeah, but this sort of softness in the car, it makes for a very nice and very comfortable drive. But it also doesn't mean, in this case, that the car, even though it's soft, it still feels very controlled on its damping. So it's not flying around on the dampers, which is a great thing. As we can see here, yeah, there was a very big angulation, very big compression, and the car just managed it very beautifully. It wasn't bouncing like some other cars. So still, even though you have soft damping, it's very well managed, I have to say. So this is quite a nice bit of road on the way from my grandparents. I really enjoy driving, so let's maybe try to push the car a little bit here. So yeah, I'm going down the hill now. Oh, the engine sound is actually not bad, even though it's just a 4-cylinder 1.6. How is in the corners? Yeah, so it's filtering the bumps in the corners when you're driving fast. Very nice. And I have to say, in my country, a lot of bureaus, they have bad surface. So yeah, no, the brakes are nice and stiff. Actually, the brake pedal in normal driving, I would say, it doesn't have quite the best feel and quite the best connection in between the electric power, or the change from electric drive to the petrol drive. So in between the recuperation and friction braking. But yeah, this car, in the corners there is a roll, but then it stays reasonably flat, and the steering through this small steering wheel is just nice. It's giving you great amount of feedback and great amount of feel also. You feel that you drive the car, you feel that you have it in the hands. So that's a nice thing. I wouldn't say it's the best steering maybe in the class. There is definitely a steering which is even more connected, which is connecting you even more with the car. But yeah, it's definitely not a bad experience, I have to say. Here, another compression. Yeah, very managed. I like it. It's doing it very well. And the quietness is the thing you really feel when you're driving the car, and you just simply feel it's different than in some of its competitors, let's say even a Golf. So a really big thing, and they did with this car. Of course, it's also a little bit pricey, let's be honest. So the Peugeot with its pricing, they really do feel or are seen as premium, maybe, with the pricing, which I don't think maybe is the most righteous thing to do, but some things of the car really do feel quite premium, I have to say. So let's try to give it all the power. Yeah, even with a flat battery, 130, 140, 150, this is a very reasonable amount of horsepower. Let's try and cut this corner very fast. Yeah, very nice and controlled. The back is very stable. Although I'm driving quite fluently and not aggressively into the corners. Let's try here. Here is some compression throughout the corner. Yeah, just very nice, and yeah, quite flat. There was a little bit of roll, but nothing too big. It's very well managed. I mean, Peugeot, they have really done a great work with the dumping on this car. So yeah, here's another bit of curvy road, so let's just enjoy. Yeah, also it's quite nicely balanced, I have to say. I'm not going to overtake into the corner. It might be a big crash, so I'll just wait a little bit. Yeah, but it's actually quite a nicely balanced car, I have to say, when you're driving. And with this amount of horsepower, 225 horsepower, I don't know exactly the Newton meters, I will put it somewhere here in the video, but it certainly has power, it has grunt. So that's a good thing. Look at this, oh, it's accelerating very nicely. So there isn't that many combi or estate cars, because it is proper in English, estate cars with quite a deal of horsepower that you can buy. This sort of category, like the Ford Focus, the Golf. So yeah, you have Focus ST, you have Golf, I think even the R still. But even this Peugeot, even though it's not a sports version of the car, it has a great deal of power for what it is, and the driving, the chassis setup is quite nice and quite drivable. Let's review the car. So let's start with some critiques. So the first critique I would have is that the fuel tank is quite small. I mean, I've only done so far 373 kilometers, and I'm on 1/4 of a tank already from full. So it is quite small, and that even though I was trying to drive reasonably efficiently. So yeah, it is a small tank. Then another thing would be maybe the battery management. As I said earlier, I don't think it's managed in the best way, but that's in general about plug-in hybrids. I don't think they manage it in quite the best way. So yeah, another maybe quite a usual thing in the new cars is that you have to turn off the lane assist every single time. For this, I'm quite happy that the Peugeot have this sort of shortcut button here into the car settings, and you can save it as a shortcut here as well. This lane keeping system, and you can turn it off quite quickly. So that's quite okay. Yeah, so those would be the critiques, I think. Then also the charging is not the fastest, but it's also another quite a usual thing in most plug-in hybrids. They have this AC charging, and even though it's a 7.4 kilowatt charging, it's not the fastest. It still takes time, and it is of course the best if you have a wall box at home and you charge it through it during the night, which makes sense if you buy such a car. So yeah, and the likes, as I've said, with this performance, you have really quite a great deal of power, even with the flat battery. So you really don't have to worry, and you actually feel quite good about it, that you have this amount of power in this car. Now the car weighs what was it, 1700 something. Here it is, 1762 kilos. So yeah, it is quite heavy. But then again, these cars, they are quite heavy. But then again you have this performance, which most people use, because when they drive in the straight and when they're overtaking, they use this performance. So it's okay. And the balance of the car, another like, is very well managed. You have a very nice driving experience driving this Peugeot, because the steering is nice. It's also reasonably light, but then when you're driving fast into the corners, it stiffens up. So yeah, it's a very nice driving Peugeot. And in the recent times, the Peugeot has done a great deal of work to making their cars more drivable and even more desirable with their design. I've been stopped by many of my schoolmates telling me how beautiful this car is, and I have to say, it is quite beautiful. It has a charisma, it has this sort of character, because of it looking like sort of a tiger or a lion. It has this charisma, it has sharp lines. It's just a very nice looking car. And also, another thing I like is that when you're stepping into the car, you have quite a big sill, quite a wide sill of the car, and it is very low. So you sort of feel like you're stepping into a BMW 1 Series, which is its competitor. But in the past, it wasn't always like this, because you had tinier sills in not the premium cars segment. So yeah, it's great. It's a great improvement of the car itself. And another thing, which is my scientific myself, that I like, they lowered the car and the roofline, so you have a better aerodynamic coefficient of 0.28, which makes the car again more efficient, and it cuts through the air a little better, which I always like. Even the small percentage of improvement, for me, it's a great thing if it happens. So yeah, it's a really nice Peugeot. I mean, of course, there is a lot of cars, a lot of these family estates, middle-class family estates that you can choose from. But if you like and if you care about design, this is definitely a car for you, and it doesn't disappoint in the driving. So yeah, if you feel like that, definitely go for it. You would not be disappointed. So I think that would be it to the Peugeot 308 Estate plug-in hybrid. Well, if you like the video, keep watching, keep subscribing, because more videos will be coming very soon. And I'll see you in the very next one. So in the meantime, goodbye.